This is one for all the theosophers out there. Through the Curtain, Viola Petitt Neal and Shafica Karagula. Shambhala, holy city of our dreams, to which we journey, knowing that its gates swing open to receive returning pilgrims from the world of form. Home city of the self, whose pilgrimage through matter and through form, throughout long eons, in the realms of time and space, bestows divinity, and we become his co-creators in God's city of creative life. Little did I know that the year 1930 would bring a friendship that would last for over 50 years. That was the year that I met Viola Petitt Neal. She was my first teacher of physics and mathematics at the American School for Girls in Beirut, Lebanon, and later a colleague and collaborator in research and writing. During the first 25 years, although we remained in constant correspondence, each of us went her own way. She to Egypt to teach, and later to Oxford and London to obtain a doctorate in philosophy from London University. Her thesis for a doctorate dealt with secret religions of the Middle East. In the meantime, I completed my studies as a physicist and went to Edinburgh University, Scotland, to receive further training as a neuropsychiatrist. My basic interest was the study of the human mind in both normal and abnormal states, trying to find an answer to the hallucinatory experiences of the insane. Dr. Wilder Penfield of the Montreal Neurological Institute assisted me in obtaining a research fellowship from McGill University to study hallucinations in temporal lobe epilepsy and electrical stimulation of the brain in conscious patients during surgery. The data was published in the British Medical Journal and received special favourable comment from the editor. The research had led me to believe that all of man's experiences were limited to the physical brain and the 5 senses. In 1956, while visiting my old friend Viola Petitt Neal in Los Angeles, I was challenged to read with an open mind a few books about the lives of Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and Edgar Cayce, men and women whose integrity is unquestionable, indicating that they had had experiences that were neither normal nor abnormal. But how was one to classify such experiences, for they were not included in my training? For the first time, Dr. Neal revealed to me her own personal experiences, one of which was that as she was falling asleep, she would see in her mind's eye, in a miniature form, frames like a moving picture of beautiful flowers, places and people, in very sharp, bright colours. These had no particular significance in her own personal life. Reference to this ability and its true meaning is discussed in one of the night classes. A second experience was that when she went to sleep, she was aware of being on another dimension, attending lectures on many subjects dealing with both science and philosophy. She referred to this experience as night classes. Upon awakening, she could recall the lectures the following morning if she so wished. Thirdly, she was a student of the ancient wisdom teaching and an accepted disciple in the Master Jupiter's ashram. She had been aware of this since early childhood, and in 1978 dedicated her book of poetry, fragments of experience, a spiritual journal, to him. She could both perceive at a distance and communicate telepathically with the ashram of the Master Jupiter, a department of the spiritual hierarchy of our planet, whose head is the Christ. These abilities were never discussed or shared except with a handful of her very close friends. Since her passing, I am permitted to disclose this information. Needless to say, her confidential disclosure stunned me. As a researcher of the human mind, I asked for verification of some of her experiences. I was allowed to question her during her sleep, if I happened to be awake myself, and if she were attending night classes. The following morning, I would try to see if she could recall the class which I had taped the night before. To my utter amazement, she was able to recall the lecture which she had attended while asleep, almost verbatim, as the tape confirmed. In other words, she had continuity of consciousness during the waking and sleeping states. As the accuracy of her recall of night classes became evident, the taping at night ceased because it was physically strenuous on both of us. In my book, Breakthrough to Creativity, Your Higher Sense Perception, brief reference was made to some people who had the ability to attend night classes. Letters were received from readers confirming and describing similar experiences. Through the Curtain is the result of the research that began 22 years ago. Only the secretary, Dr. Neal, and I knew of this research. Before she passed on in 1981, Dr. Neal had agreed that the time had come for presenting the data to help students understand their experiences during sleep. It will also help the scientist to realize that when he says, "I want to sleep on it," and wakes up with the answer which he did not have in his full waking consciousness, perchance he is attending scientific classes during sleep and obtaining the answer to his problem from sources other than himself. How else could one explain the common phenomenon of a person not being able to find the solution in his full waking consciousness, suddenly finding it after sleeping on it? Viola chose the title Through the Curtain because each time she went to night class, she had to pass through a curtain of energy to the concrete mental plane. When I asked a question while she was apparently asleep, she had to move in consciousness to the center of this curtain of energy, and then back to the concrete mental plane, ask the teacher the question, or listen to what was being said in class, and return back to the curtain of energy to describe what the answer was or what her personal impressions were. This shifting back and forth from the physical plane to the concrete mental plane was physically strenuous. The number of lectures she attended in any one night varied from 1 to 3. The number also varied from week to week and month to month, depending on her physical health. Each lecture in the text is identified as to date, marked, taped by SK, meaning the lecture was obtained during sleep or recalled by VPN the following morning. The text containing the letters SK standing for Shafica Karagula and VPN for Viola Petitt Neal. During the taping of the night classes, she was able to retain 3 states of consciousness. She was aware of me as the person asking the questions, could give my name as well as who she was and her name and the class she was attending, and who the teacher was and what the lecture was about. Thus she was aware of her own identity at all times, as well as my identity and that of those on the mental plane of the various departments of the spiritual hierarchy of the planet. I observed that the nights she went to night classes, her eyes seemed to be focused inwardly, as though her consciousness was already tuned in. She herself was never aware of any change before going to sleep. On rare occasions, when a few close friends were present, I pointed out my observation about her eyes, which they were also able to confirm. This experimental period was permitted in order to enhance excuse me, in order to enhance her continuity of consciousness between the waking and sleeping states. Selection of the lectures is being presented according to subject matter. Letters such as Z or X were used in this book in order to cover the identity of the real people referred to. It will be noted that Viola's night classes had influenced her poetry. A selection of both published and unpublished poems is included. Some were written after her book, Fragments of Experience, A Spiritual Journey, was published in 1978. Others were found among her personal papers and signed by her. Following in the footsteps of the ancient wisdom teaching, the reader is asked to read the material with an open mind, contemplating upon the concepts presented, neither accepting nor rejecting them. It is hoped it will spark an inspiration and a more meaningful awareness as to other sources for our creative endeavors in science, philosophy, archaeology, art, and music. It may also help to explain why so often discoveries are made almost simultaneously in different parts of the world. See reference to the neutron bomb and the healing that we may receive from sources undreamed of. Shafica Karagula, December 1982. So now she gives a chapter titled A Condensed Outline of the Constitution of Man as Given in the Ancient Wisdom Teaching. The 7 planes of our solar system. 1. Divine. First cosmic etheric. 2. Monadic. Second cosmic etheric. It's associated with the spirit. 3. Atmic. Third cosmic etheric. And this third cosmic etheric is linked with the next 2 as being associated with the soul. 4. Buddhic, the fourth cosmic etheric. 5. Mental, which is split into abstract mental and concrete mental, and that's the cosmic gaseous. 6. Astral or emotional, it's cosmic liquid, and this is the start of those associations with the personality. 7. Physical, and that's split into first etheric, second etheric, third etheric, fourth etheric, gaseous, liquid, dense, and that's cosmic dense. The causal field or body links the soul or the Buddhic plane to the personality unit and envelops the etheric, astral, and mental fields. There are within the 3 major fields of energy in the personality unit 21 major vortices or chakras. 7 of these in the etheric field, 7 in the emotional or astral field, and 7 in the mental field. The 7 centers in each body are related to the glandular system. Thus, at the top of the head center, the crown, pineal gland, the ajna or brow, the pituitary gland, throat, thyroid gland, heart, the thymus, solar plexus, pancreas, stomach and liver, the sacral chakra, gonads or ovaries, and the base of the spine, root center or kundalini, linked to the adrenal system. Now this is the first chapter on the night classes, at the start of which is a poem of Viola's. Anticipation. I have a rendezvous with joy along the turnings in life's way, new vistas in the world of thought that lift the heart with glad surprise. A mockingbird that sings all night for pure joy of beingness, a newborn foal, a child of life who stands bemused with wonderment. The golden joy of aspen trees against a blue October sky, the still white joy of falling snow, the rippling gold of desert sand, blue shadowed in late afternoon. I have a rendezvous with joy that gladdens all life's winding ways. Now, excuse me, is a chapter on the mechanics of attending night classes. This was taped on September the 17th, 1960 by Shafica Karagula, who's recording from Viola. And it's in the form of questions and answers. How long do the classes last? Sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes an hour. How many lectures does the student attend each night? Sometimes 2 or 3, but often just 1. Are you going to another class tonight? No, I don't think so. Can you see X anywhere now? No. Is the class of X still going on? It is finished now. So nobody is there? No. There are some students in the room. I think they are asking questions. No, it's finished. They are leaving. Which ashram is that? This class seems to be the Will Ray ashram. I think it is Jay's ashram, but I think the teacher is from the Third Ray ashram. You mean the one in which X is? No. The teacher in mine had the symbol of the Master R, Third Ray, but he was in the classroom of the Master J's ashram. Is this the end of the lecture tonight? I think so. There is a hallway with a curtain of light at the other end. What does that mean? Some of the students are going through it. I think it means they're leaving. I kind of got stuck tonight. Where? In the curtain of frequency. Then there's another session, also in September 1960, also taped by Shafica. How long do the classes last? I don't think it is so much a time sequence. Actually, the classes are on the mental level. It is a period during which very specific intent and design, I will just quote the teacher. A certain type of knowledge frequency is directed to a group of disciples. This frequency finds a resonance on the mental body and is recorded in the mental body, almost like a disc of a Victrola, like a magnetic tape. The magnetic tape is very much the principle. In fact, it is interesting. It is really taken from the type of thing that happens. So, if you have a magnetic tape recording, figuratively speaking, in the mental body, when the right stimulus occurs on the physical plane, the need or something else, the mental body can play it back, so to speak. People who have very disturbed astral bodies are not too good at playing back. You have to have a very steady astral body and a very well-adjusted physical body and etheric. You may remember it in waking consciousness entirely, or it may come to you as flashes of ideas. What happens to the student who is going to class in the evenings before he attends the class? Why does he tense up? Or does he tense up? What happens? His mental body is tuned to the frequency of that body of knowledge which will be given in the class. In other words, it is adjusted to resonate like a dial on a radio. So his attention is partly directed inward, and this creates not so much attention as a focus. The focus affects to some degree the astral and physical etheric bodies until the recording is made. The recording is made when he goes to class. Does he get tuned into it? He is tuned into a resonating cycle. I feel tired. This is very tiring. What is tiring? It is that frequency, the curtain. It is like a curtain of rain. You have to kind of stand in the middle of it, and it is tiring. What does it do? It tunes out the physical body and astral body, and tunes into the mental. You have, by analogy, to sort of stand in the center of it. When you are doing this, it is tiring. Why do the muscles feel tired? Does it affect the etheric? It affects the etheric body and the muscles of the body. How does it affect the etheric? The etheric is an energy pattern that resonates to the mental body, which affects the physical structure, the actual cells of the physical body. Is this the thing that makes the student tense? It is not exactly tension in the ordinary sense. It is tuning up. Is there anything that could be suggested that would help to ease this for the student? It does not have to be eased. It won't hurt him. He has to learn to handle it. Other classes that are being held, are they held at the time when the student goes to sleep? Or are they registered in his mental body when he is asleep, and then he merely plays it back? No, he goes to a class. Recording is done when his consciousness is fully focused in the mental body. This has to be done in a class. The thing is recorded on his mental body when he is in class. Yes, that's it. But he has to go to a class. Yes. Going to the class means his whole consciousness is focused in the mental body. But sometimes the student does not remember being in class. The recording is played back to him when he needs it. When there is a stimulus in the outer world, it activates it. But more and more the disciple remembers what he has been told when he wakes up. To go to class, one has to pass through a curtain or shed of energy. Classes are held not in a place, but in a frequency band, a dimension of frequency which one has to attune or resonate to. This is the end of the class. March the 1st, 1962. Night class of Shafica Karagula. This is Viola Petitt Neal's ability to recall another student's night class. This morning, during the discussion of the night class, the question was raised as to whether Viola could recall the presence of other students. Viola said that Shafica was not present in her class, which dealt with healing, colour and form, but that she had attended another class. Shafica could not recall such an experience and asked Viola to try to obtain the night class that Shafica had attended. We are not certain whether it was obtained from the record made on the mental body of Shafica or whether Viola tuned into the original record of the class which is on the concrete mental plane. Viola described it thus. The subject dealt with the nature and quality of the substance of the etheric body. A thought form was projected to the students in Shafica's class, which Viola saw as a motion picture in her forehead. She described it as follows. Different grades of etheric substance could resonate to certain defined and limited bands of frequency of energy. The experiment was set up like a tuning fork, with other tuning forks set around so that when one struck a specific tuning fork, others with similar frequency resonated to it. It appeared that every human being was connected by frequency with the etheric centers of the planet. Energy radiates from each etheric center of the planet, which is picked up by the etheric centers of humans and animals. The etheric energy man or animal receives in the centers is channeled via the etheric centers of the planet. Individual etheric centers of a human being resonate to these frequencies. Some can resonate to a wide band of frequencies, others to a narrow band. There are gaps in the bands of frequencies they can resonate to because people have substance in their etheric bodies of different planes. For example, one person may have substance of the 6th, 7th, 6th, and 3rd etheric planes, while another person may have 5th, 4th, and 1st plane substances. Each would resonate towards frequencies that correspond to their planes of etheric substance. The quality of the etheric body determines the quality of the personality. This is a broad subject. It will also include certain types of people and planetary types, which would show special qualities of substance, which would be characteristic of the place where human individualization took place. Present in this class are about 10 students. On March the 1st, after Viola had tried to tune into the class that Shafica had attended, an attempt was made to see if Viola could tune in to a week previously. The following was the impression obtained. Apparently, Shafica had attended a night class a week ago which dealt with the throat center and the thyroid and the parathyroid glands. A huge thought form was projected into the classroom, several feet in diameter, in order to discuss and demonstrate the structure and mechanism of any center, in particular, the throat center. The lecture dealt with the function of the core and petals in different conditions, indicating a state of health or disease. The first thing pointed out to the student on this throat center was the core and its movements. The movements of the core in the thought form showed that the energies came into the core in a clockwise manner and gradually spiraled down in a cone-like manner, moving inward into a point where it entered the spine. The energies appeared as extremely fine, hair-like lines and were luminous and pale blue in color. The movement was rhythmical and symmetrical in a state of health. The petals had a web-like pattern that was symmetrical and harmonious. It appears that the constitution of the centers is different. The energy flowing into the petals came from the spine as though spurting out like a fountain in the shape of a bell-like flower. In other words, the energy from the outside flows inward via the core and moves outward via the petals and is dissipated at the periphery of the petals. The lecturer said that the petals are bounce-back signals that tell how the energies are being received and used. In other words, by analogy, how the petals are functioning. The petals are like the bounce-back signal on radar. They are in a sense like an aura around the central whirl of energy which is the core. The petals are the outlet for energy that comes in and is dissipated from the edges of the petals like the dissipation of electrical energy around a wire. A thought form was projected where there was a disturbance in function of the thyroid in order to illustrate the mechanism. The thyroid was functioning too fast, and the energy in the petals spurted out in irregular and too rapid spurts. This was clear in the close-up of the model thought form. When one stood back, it appeared like a crack or a break between the two petals and in the petals. This was because the symmetrical pattern of the petals had been somewhat broken up by these irregular spurts. The lecturer pointed out that a break between the petals and in the petals showed that the parathyroids are involved in a certain way also. Lack of flow of energy into the core showed a serious enough condition that there was at least a beginning of pathology in the physical cells of the gland itself, indicating a hypofunction state. Energy leaking out at the core means all energy is not moving into the spine as it should, and therefore not into the area energized by this center. This could mean any part of the body which the center supplies could be starved for energy. For example, in the case of the throat center, it may be the vocal cords which would show low vitality, which eventually could result in a diseased condition. Viola felt tired, and further comments were terminated. So I'm going to stop here, and because we're at the end of that section, and the next section will be on extrasensory perception.